Hey, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Morning Devo with Beau. Hope you guys are doing good. It's Thursday, but I feel like saying it's Slow Thursday today. I don't know if it's slow for you guys, but it feels a little putsy today, a little slow. Probably because I had our daughter blew out a tire late last night, so I was kind of out there. We were making sure we get the car home and all that, so it ended up being a longer night than usual. You guys know how that goes, where there's the unpredictable part of life, right? We never know what's going to happen, when it's going to happen. We just got to remain super flexible and faithful. So welcome to the Morning Devo with Beau. Beau Willette's my name. It's a very French-Canadian name, Beau Willette, Ouellette. Right there in the top right, you can go to YouTube, go to the search bar, put it in there, and you can get to my playlist on different books of the Bible. I've gone through the Bible once already on YouTube. I'm in my second time of rolling through it. So I'm in the New Testament, and then I'll get right back into Genesis after we get to Revelation. So this is kind of how I do my devotions, is I just go through the Bible. That way it helps me understand kind of the big pictures, the big themes of the Bible. The biggest theme being, of course, God and, of course, the Messiah, meaning the anointed ones. God who's going to take care of business in the sense of saving people, redeeming them, judging the world, holding the world accountable for their rebellion. And man, the Bible has some pretty amazing topics throughout it, and they're really relevant to us about human nature, why we're the way we are, why our world is the way it is. And lo and behold, we get to this wonderful chapter 11 in the book of Hebrews. So let's get into it. Let's kind of read through it together because it's so cool just to pick it up and read. I read from the New Living Translation. I find that translation absolutely awesome. Good old Carla at Wycliffe loves it as well. And she's a Bible translator with Wycliffe and has been for many years. And so I really value her opinion on this translation. So New Living Translation is a good one to read from. I really enjoy it. Okay, so let's get into it. And so it says, faith shows the reality of what we hope for. It is the evidence of things we cannot see. Through their faith, the people of old earned a good reputation. By faith, we understand that the entire universe was formed at God's command, that what we now see did not come from anything that can be seen. It was by faith that Abel brought a more acceptable offering to God than Cain did. Abel's offering gave evidence that he was a righteous man, and God showed his approval of his gifts. Although Abel was long dead, he still speaks to us by his example of faith. It was by faith that Enoch was taken up to heaven without dying. He disappeared because God took him. For before he was taken up, he was known as a person who pleased God, and it is impossible to please God without faith. Anyone who wants to come to him must believe that God exists and that he rewards those who sincerely seek him. Oh, cool. So obviously this is a faith chapter. This chapter is certainly talking about faith, right? This is a great, man, what a balancing chapter after chapter 10, which was that strong, don't go back into your religious rules and regulations type of thing. Don't go backwards. There's no sacrifice that is left for those who turn away from the Messiah. The Messiah is the greater. He is the God-man. So if you reject God, well, then there's no being that's going to compare. You're going to the lesser. And so then he gets into trust, the idea of trusting God, right? What we hope for. We're trusting for what we hope for. We can't see it, but we're trusting it. There's a lot of things we can't see. Have you, it's funny. It used to be an argument, that I used to always say is like, man, if I don't see it, I don't what? Believe it. And you might have used that kind of argument as well, that if I can't see it, then I won't believe it. Nowadays, it's kind of a moot argument, because nowadays we really realize that there's a lot of things that we just can't see that are floating around the air all the time. We actually throw these things called satellites into the sky, like they're floating around the space, and things are bouncing off of them. And it's unbelievable. We put solar panels up on our houses. We have all kinds of little gadgets that we play with, right? That we have, where there's a lot of signals going, waves, all kinds of waves going everywhere. Just think if you had eyes that could see everything that you can't see. Man, isn't that interesting? Your eyes can only see particular things. That's it. It can't see all of reality. It just can't. Your eyes aren't capable. But there is reality that you just cannot see. Man, what a trip, right? Faith is the evidence of things we cannot see. And it says, through their faith, they gained a great reputation. And now he goes into this amazing kind of history lesson of those that walked by faith. And he kind of goes all the way back. I don't know if you noticed that, but this guy's really going through his Bible. He starts in the early parts of the book of Genesis, and he launches in. And so this guy's very familiar with his Bible, and man, it makes me think, boy, I hope I can be familiar with my Bible as well. Just think if you never read the Old Testament, what's called the Old Testament, what I like to call the Hebrew Bible. You would read this chapter and you wouldn't know anybody that it's talking about. How sad, right? You don't even know what it's talking about because you've never read the actual first pages of the Bible. All you've been in is in the New Testament. That's pretty sad. The whole idea of chapter 10, or one of the ideas, the big themes, and the theme that continues to come up in this book is not only don't reject the Messiah, but you should know that he's the Messiah. And he's coming back again. And you should be prepared. And you should be ready. And you should know the basic teachings of the Bible. But you don't, because you're stuck. You're going to other things, man. You haven't gone to the source. And many people, instead of going to the source, they go to something else, right? They go to some YouTube thing, or some this, some that, some religious thing over there, instead of just opening up to Genesis and go. Well, that's what this guy's doing. And that's a great example to us of maybe where we should be too, is just going through all the books of the Bible, going through the scriptures and knowing them. And that's kind of course, what we're all about, right? That's why you're joining me today, because you want to go through the chapter. Okay, so I guess I'm going to be able to compare my faith with these guys' faith. Abel, he's this guy. He brings an offering to God, right? He does it in faith. And that's what the big difference was between him and his brother, is one is of faith, trusting God. The next one we get is Enoch, right? Enoch was taken up to heaven without even dying, right? Enoch was and then was not. A very interesting guy. And it says he was a person who was known as a person who pleased God. But it's impossible, it says, to please God without faith. All your works, all your ordinances, all your religious deeds, they're not going to be the thing that can make you right with God. You're going to need to trust God. Lean on him. Put everything, all your weight, onto the Messiah. That's what it's all about, trusting in God. And so this is what the writer says. It's impossible to please God. It makes me think too, is my heart really one to, please God? Or am I more about the business of pleasing myself through feeling good because of religious regulations and ceremonies that I might do that make me feel kind of good? I think a lot of times our religious stuff is just simply to make us feel good. It makes us feel secure. It makes us feel kind of like I'm a part of my family, or I'm a part of something, or this kind of thing. But do I really worship God in faith? Am I really trusting Jesus? I want to trust you, Lord. I want to worship you in spirit and in truth. Am I really coming to you because I want to please you? Is my heart to please God? Or is my actions really just to please myself? It's kind of a good question. And it says, it's impossible to please God without faith. Anyone who wants to come to him must believe that God exists and that he rewards those who sincerely seek him. So if you just do your religious ceremonies, but you don't really even believe in God, right? You don't believe he exists, it's of no benefit to you. A lot of people, I think, are like that, where they go to church or they go to synagogue or they go to their, their Muslim place and, whatever it is, their mosque. They go to their shrine. And it's not that they really believe it, right? Well, I don't really believe it. It's not like I really believe it literally. I just I like to go. It helps me, it reminds me of my parents, or it reminds me of this, or it makes me feel good, or, I just feel like a part of, I feel more spiritual. And we used to say that a lot in California. I feel spiritual. I'm spiritual. But it was kind of like we were stroking ourselves, our own egos, if that makes sense. We're just like, oh man, I feel so spiritual. Gosh, it makes me feel good, and me and me and me. And all of a sudden you find out you're human-centric in your faith, meaning everything is, the center of it is all you. It has nothing to do with pleasing God, because you don't even really believe that God exists. And so it is just a man-centric philosophy or behavior that we're doing. So it really has nothing to do with God, and it certainly can't please God. Does it really please my wife if I believe she doesn't even exist? I don't even believe she's my wife? Is it really benefit my children if I don't even believe they exist? I mean, how many parents don't even believe their children exist? Meaning they have neglected their children for so long in their life. Their kids are big now. They're adults, right? But they live like they have no children. Like none. Zero. Right? They've lived most of their life as if they have no child at all. Does that really glorify the child? No. And the child's big by now, of course, but, no, it doesn't glorify the child at all. You've lived a life as if the child doesn't even exist. You can't please the child that way. You can't please the adult child that way. And you certainly can't please God that way if we don't believe that he exists. So it goes on. It was by faith that Noah built a large boat to save his family from the flood. Man, what a act of faith that was, right? Again, you don't know that God's going to redeem everything. You don't know how God's going to redeem everything. I mean, he said it. God told Noah, what was going to happen, but you kind of don't see it. You don't see it happening. You don't see the rain. You're not quite sure, what's going to happen exactly, how it's all going to shake down, but you're just trusting. God said how many days it's going to happen or when it's going to happen, and that will be with the flood. And man, get your body ready to build, And he obeyed God, who warned him about the things that had never happened before. He couldn't rely on something that happened before. He had to trust what God was saying was going to happen. And am I trusting God to make it happen? Do I believe God is able? Do I believe God exists? Do I believe Jesus is coming back a second time, as it keeps reiterating that Jesus is coming back again? Do I believe it? That kind of thing. Am I trusting it? It says, by faith, Noah condemned the rest of the world, and he received the righteousness that comes by faith, by trusting. Okay, so there is a righteousness that comes by faith, a right standing with God that comes by faith. You want to be right with God? Well, we're going to have to exercise some faith. Faith in who? Well, faith in his Son, faith in the Messiah. Do I trust in what the Messiah has done? This is what the writer keeps saying. He's your faithful high priest. Trust in what he's done for you. He laid down his life once and for all for sins. Do you trust that? Or do you trust that his sacrifice wasn't good enough for you? Do you think that you need to do more sacrificing because Jesus is not a good sacrifice for you? So you need to sacrifice other things, and you need to do some other gyrations, and you can't really trust in Jesus alone because, man, it's just not enough. Righteousness that comes by faith. It says it was by faith that Abraham obeyed when God called him to leave home and to go to another land that God would give him as his inheritance. He went without knowing where he was going, and he even when he reached the land God promised him, he lived there by faith, for he was like a foreigner, living in tents. And so did Isaac and Jacob, who inherited the same promise. Abraham was confidently looking forward to a city with eternal foundations, a city designed and built by God. So Abraham was called to leave his home. He was waiting for this promise of this land, this place. He never really, there was no fulfillment of it in his day. He was always a guy looking forward, but he did it in faith, right? Trusting God had something greater for him. And I love how it talks about an eternal foundation, a city designed and built by God, something greater in the heavens. That's the greater. Again, living on the earth is not the greater. Living in heaven, that is the greater. Staying alive here on the earth, it's okay, but wanting to be alive in heaven, being able to dwell with a holy God, that's where you want to be. It's always that lesser and greater kind of idea. What is the greater? Is it the land on like the rocks and the soil that's greater, or is it heaven, the place, the dwelling place of God? Is that greater? Well, of course that's greater. That's why to die is to gain, right? To be with the Lord is greater than being in this body that's going to fail, going to fall apart. And it says it was by faith that even Sarah was able to have a child. Man, love this. This is great. Wow, was even able to have a child. It says, though she was barren and was too old, she believed that God would keep his promise. And so a whole nation came from this one man who is as good as dead. He was an old guy, can't have any children, And it says a nation with so many people like that, like the stars in the sky and the sand on the seashore. There was no way to count them. All these people died still believing what God had promised them. They died believing what God had promised them. He who comes to me will never die. Do you believe this? That's what Jesus said. The answer is yes or no. Do you believe it? Do I trust in the promise of the Messiah? It says all these people died still believing that God had promised them. They did not receive what was promised, but they saw it from a distance and welcomed it. Man, they couldn't kind of grasp it, but they got the promises of God. They got the revelation of God that they got, and they trusted it. They didn't see its fulfillment. But how about you? How about me? Man, we look back to an amazing event in history. And that is the life and the death and the resurrection and ascension of Jesus. We are privileged. We can look back to the fulfillment of many of these promises and see it all in Jesus. They had to look forward, right? In their time, they had to look forward to the promise. They knew the promise of deliverance was coming. The great deliverer, the son that would be born on page 3 of the Bible, would come, deliver the world. The world would be saved from its rebellion, from its evil. There would be righteousness that would rule and reign, and they trusted that. And so they looked forward to the work of Messiah. Man, what about us? We get to look back, you know. And it says, they all were believing in the promises. They all saw it at a distance, and they welcomed it. And they agreed that they were foreigners and nomads here on the earth, man. I'm a foreigner. Do I see myself as a foreigner today on the earth? Or are my roots so deep down that I don't want to go? You know, I don't want to go to heaven. Why? Because I got a nice house. You know, hey, I miss my house. It's so nice. You know, everything's so nice about it. You know, or have I lived in a way where to leave this place isn't so hard? You know, I don't have all the greatest house. I don't have the greatest cars. I don't have the greatest motorcycles. I don't have the greatest everything. You know, you're not living to where your roots are here. You're not using all your finances for the here, right? Oh, I don't want to leave here because, boy, it's so nice. Instead, you're going like, man, I'm looking forward to going. You know, I look forward to getting over there, you know. I mean, my house is cool, but it ain't that cool, you know. It's like, it's not that nice, you know. You're kind of seeing things like that. They're nomads on the earth. It's really interesting that we could sometimes see our lack of faith by where we really anchored down, you know, to where we see, where have we dropped our anchor, you know. Am I really, and sometimes our finances really take a look at, you know, can see that, you know, if everything is about my home, then I am going to spend my money on what? My home. That's right. I'm going to have the nicest this, the nicest that, the nicest this, the nicest that, right? Everything's concentrated. How much money have I given out to people? How much money do I help the poor? How much do I help the body of Christ? How much, where is my money going to? You know, that is going to tell a little bit of the tale of where my roots are at on this planet. You know, because if you build up the big house in Malibu and you got everything and you have spent your money cultivating everything that you got, you know, and just that's what you've poured into, then to leave that would be quite difficult. But if we've given, right, sell all you have and give to the poor, then I have nothing. Right? I have nothing. It becomes, going to heaven becomes a great thing. Why? Because I don't got anything. Right? You could see how Jesus is trying to get us to see that there's something greater. There's something better. Hey, Zacchaeus, there's something better. And he's in your house. You know, Zacchaeus, that tax collector, right? Who invites Jesus into his home, right? And what is Jesus? Zacchaeus gets it. He sees Jesus, man. He hears Jesus and he goes, man, I got to get right. You know, the better is in my house. The better's not my house. The better's Jesus who's in my house. And, you know, nothing's wrong with a home. Nothing's wrong with the Malibu place. We have to just realize that it's all going to burn. It is all fragile and decaying. And am I really rooted in things that are decaying or in the eternal kingdom? Right? The heavenly kingdom. The kingdom that is built by God. Am I really rooted in that? So, and you could feel the tug in your heart, at times. Oh, that. I don't want to lose that. Or I don't want to lose that. I don't want to lose that. Instead of going, hey, I don't have it. I don't need it. My dad was amazing like this. My dad and my mom, both of them were great examples of this. Man, my dad, it was not about anything like any car, any home. He did not have any inkling to need to be on some status. He did not care about, even kind of where he lived. I mean, he just was more about the business of helping people get sober. That was it. And that was his world, man. It was about getting people sober, helping people, being in a neighborhood where he can open up his door and anybody could come in. And that's how he lived. Anybody could walk in that door and sit with him, and he would talk to them and want to help. Not enable, but he'd want to help. And boy, man, I mean, he didn't have anything. The guy just didn't, his anchor was not on the planet. He did not anchor down at all. He had some clothes, but he didn't wear a bunch of clothes. He just had, some flannels and some shirts and, this kind of thing. Just, he had a couch, but his couch was kind of, everything was just kind of secondhand, kind of, it didn't really, and when I mean secondhand, I mean like old school secondhand. Not like today where you get secondhand stuff and it's like, from the wealthy. And it's really nice. His stuff was just not expensive, not very made well. Man, the chair that the dude was in before he died was one I had to pry him out of because it was so old and creaky and messed up. I mean, I just was like, Dad, man, we got to get you out of this chair. But it was a great picture of just not needing to anchor down, just not needing those things. He was ready to go, man. When it was time to die, he was like, man, I got nothing here. I mean, what do I have? A white t-shirt from Fruit of the Loom? It was really cool, man. I thought it was amazing, just amazing the faith, to walk forward, to move forward in death, holding on to the promise, to walk forward in moving away from this body of decay in faith, holding fast to the promise. Man, that was cool. And, so they were nomads on the earth, right? Obviously, people who say such things are looking forward to a country they can call their own. If they had longed for a country they came from, they could have gone back. But they were looking for a better place, a heavenly homeland. That is why God is not ashamed to be called their God, for he has prepared a city for them. He's prepared a city for them. Man, they're looking forward. They don't have anything to look back on. They're just moving forward. My professor in college, the late great Dr. Ron Purcell, said when I was leaving for Tucson from Southern California, he said, "Hey, Beau, don't look back. Don't look back. Go." Man, and I was just like, whoa, that is great advice. Thank you. Dr. Purcell, man, for that. I needed to hear that when I was 17, 18, 19 years old. That, hey, you go forward. And when you go forward, man, you go. Look forward to the thing that you can't see, but go for it, but don't look back. Don't have an anchor 1 foot in over here. You go. Boy, that's cool. It was by faith that Abraham offered Isaac as a sacrifice when God was testing him. Abraham, who had received God's promises, was ready to sacrifice his only son. Isaac, even though God had told him, Isaac is the son through whom your descendants will be counted, Abraham reasoned that if Isaac died, God was able to bring him back to life again. And in a sense, Abraham did receive his son back from the dead. He was as good as dead, and he was spared, and there it is. Abraham believed in the resurrection. the Messiah, the resurrection, do I believe it? Do I trust it? Do I hope in it? And it says, it was by faith that Isaac promised blessings for the future to his son, Jacob and Esau. It was by faith that Jacob, when he was old and dying, blessed each of Joseph's sons and bowed in worship as he leaned on his staff. It was by faith that Joseph, when he was about to die, said confidently that the people of Israel would leave Egypt. He even commanded them to take his bones with them when he left. Hey man, make sure you bring my bones, even though I'll be dead, right? But I'm believing the promise of God for land, the promise of God for children, the promise of God for inheritance, the promise of God. You can see these guys just trusting God. It's these faithful Jewish dudes, the faithful Hebrews, we could say, the faithful Hebrews that are trusting God, moving forward, not so anchored down, trusting God and what he said. Hey, God is able to raise from the dead. God is able to deliver. God's able to give us a land. God's able to do these things. God's able to lead us through. God's able to see us on the other side. All that stuff. You see that's what's going on in their brains. It was by faith that Moses' parents hid him for 3 months. When he was born, they saw that God had given him an unusual child, and they were not afraid to disobey the king's command. It was by faith that Moses, when he grew up, refused to be called the son of Pharaoh's daughter. He chose to share the oppression of God's people instead of enjoying the fleeting pleasures of sin. He thought it was better to suffer for the sake of Messiah than to own the treasures of Egypt, for he was looking ahead to his great reward. The idea of trusting God by identity to the Messiah. I am identifying with Jesus. I am identifying with the great deliverer, the Messiah. Moses saw that the Messiah was the great deliverer, that he was the great deliverer of Israel. He was the one who was going to redeem them, be there. Notice that Moses had encounters with God, and he knew that was the Messiah. Man, he was thinking all the way, the great deliverer, the anointed one. The anointed one. God is here with us. Emmanuel, right? God with us. And even Moses was tracking with that and said, hey, I'm going to identify with God and his people over even Egypt. Man, that's amazing. How many of us want the reputation of the rich, want the reputation of the famous, want to be seen in that place of fame? And instead, do I associate with the poor? Do I associate with just the meek, right? Just the humble, Who do I associate with? Man, that really challenges you, right? Where do you live, right? Who do you hang out with? There's a lot there to it. Am I trusting God? Or do I find that I'm biased or I'm prejudiced? Do I see that in my life? Am I afraid to live by poor people? Am I afraid to minister to poor people? Am I afraid to give my life? Am I afraid to give up my reputation? Boy, we can see from Moses, a man of faith, really trusting God, the greater. He is the greater. See, if I'm really serving God, I'm really serving the greater. And that's how Moses looked at it. And it says, it was by faith that Moses left the land of Egypt, not fearing the king's anger. He kept right on going because he kept his eyes on the one who's invisible. It was by faith. Isn't that weird? The eyes on the one who is invisible. Man, that's crazy. You can't see the invisible, but your eyes can be on the things that you can't see. Just as we see in this world, there's a lot of things we can't see, but our eyes are on them. We know they're there. Right? Those waves, those sound waves, those, sonar things, all those waves, we know they're there. Our eyes can be on them, even though they're invisible. It was by faith that Moses commanded the people of Israel to keep the Passover and to sprinkle blood on the doorpost so that the angel of death would not kill their firstborn sons. And it was by faith that the people of Israel went right through the Red Sea as though they were on dry ground. But when the Egyptians tried to follow, they were all drowned. It was by faith that the people of Israel marched around Jericho for 7 days, and the walls came crashing down. You can see the guy finally gets out of the Torah, and he's moving on to another book of the Bible, right? Talking about Jericho. And then it says, it was by faith that Rahab, the prostitute, was not destroyed with the people in her city who refused to obey God, for she had given a friendly welcome to the spies. So Rahab goes against everybody around her and does something radical. Trust the true and living God. How much more do I need to say? It would take too long to recount the stories of the faith of Gideon, Barak, Samson, Jephthah, David, Samuel, and all the prophets. By the way, all these people are very interesting people, I think you've noticed too, is that they're not all perfect people, are they? Not even close. The only one we've read about that really we don't know much about was Abel and Enoch, it seems like. But the rest of their lives that we kind of go into, man, we know that they all had some issues, that's for sure. I mean, Gideon had 70 sons. I mean, talk about an issue, right? I mean, yeah, Barak, Samson? Samson? Wait, time out. Is Samson on this? Right? David? David's in this too? Yeah, people of faith. And it says in all the prophets. Yes, Amos too. All the prophets are there. By faith, these people overthrew kingdoms, ruled with justice, and received what God had promised them. They shut the mouths of lions, quenched the flames of fire, and escaped death by the edge of the sword. Daniel, their weakness was turned to strength. They became strong in battle and put whole armies to flight. Women received their loved ones back from death. Man, amazing. A great list of people, a real colorful group. Man, it really should throw out this idea that people of faith have everything licked in their life. No way. People of faith have a lot of chinks in their armor. Man, they got a lot of issues that happen in their life. But you know what they're doing? They're upright. They're looking up all the time. They're very aware of God and what God, the invisible God, they're very aware that God is present, that God is doing work, that God is involved. And even though they can't see, they are living as though He is there and He is moving them, and they've heard His word and they're trusting what the revelation was. This is what God spoke. I am going to trust that and live as though that is the truth. That is the real. Man. So we can learn a lot from these people, even though they're super fallen, man. I am not going to get into how fallen they are, but they are fallen people, And God uses us, fallen people, right? And as we trust and we live, knowing that He is here. And He is present, and He has a mission for us, and He's revealed what that mission is. And am I trusting that? Do I trust Him? Am I moving forward? Am I looking to the Messiah? Am I trusting the Messiah? I'm listening to the words of the Messiah. Go out into the world and make disciples of all people, baptizing them in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, right? Follow me, Jesus said. Follow me, right? Come after me, I will not turn away from you. You come after me. I am your friend. I will lay down my life for you. Follow me. Am I following Jesus, or am I following some other person on this planet, some religious system, some religion organized thing, some dogma, some whatever it is, some guru? Am I following that, or am I following the Messiah? Trusting in the revelation. Jesus said, I've come to reveal the Father. You doubt God? I am here. That's what Jesus said. Emmanuel, God with us. You doubt God? Yes, I understand you doubt God. That's why I am here, to prove to you once and for all that you are visited. I am here. just as it was said that I would be here. Man, amazing. It says, but others were tortured, refused to turn from God in order to be set free. They have refused to turn from God. It says they placed their hope in a better life after the resurrection. Whoa, a better life. They looked forward to the resurrection. They believed in the resurrection. They saw that the Bible, the Old Testament Hebrew Bible, spoke of the resurrection, that there was this idea of life after death. They trusted in that. They trusted in the basics, right? They trusted in what was revealed to them. Some were jeered at, and their backs were cut open with whips. Others were chained in prison. Some died by stoning, some were sawed in half, and others were killed with the sword. Some went about wearing skins of sheep and goats, destitute and oppressed and mistreated. They were too good for this world, wandering over deserts and mountains, hiding in caves and holes in the ground. Don't you love what that says? They were too good for this world. That's awesome. What a cool passage. Man, you're too good for this world. That's why the world don't like you, because you're too good for it. Man, meaning you're trusting in the good. And that's why they hate you. See, it's not that they themselves are all good in that, but it's that they're trusting in the good, which has made them good. They've trusted in the better. And man, this world fights that. We fight Jesus. We always are fighting the revelation of God. We always are going against it. We think we know what we're doing. All these people earned a good reputation because of their faith, yet none of them received all that God had promised. It still was not yet. For God had something better in mind for us, so that they would not reach perfection without us. Woo! They are going to be with us. They are going to receive their Messiah just as we have received our Messiah. They are going to be in heaven just as we are going to be in heaven. And we have this amazing opportunity in our world to know Jesus, to be able to study about Jesus, to be able to read about Jesus. We have an incredible privilege that they, didn't see at the time. They didn't see the fulfillment of all those promises. Yet we live in a time where we, see it all. It's very difficult to read the Hebrew Bible and not see our world in it. It is a book of history of the people of Israel, how the people of Israel got into their land. They trusted God. It wasn't always a good situation. And somehow we tend to forget about that in our world. We tend to lose sight of the big pictures of the Bible. Many people doubt God. Well, sometimes all you need to do is take out a map and look and see if there's a place called Israel. And if there's a place called Israel, well, that's the history of God's work through a particular group of people on the planet. But we sometimes miss those big pictures of what the Bible's about. Man, so many of these people, why are they in the Bible? Why is there the Old Testament? Man, it's a story of faith, of learning to trust in God. And that's probably our life too. Learning to trust God, right? Day by day by day. Man, even though we live in a different time, even though we look back on Messiah, they look forward to Messiah, we get to meet in the middle, so to speak, and partake in that inheritance together. So, man, a very cool passage about faith and trusting and moving forward, not being anchored down in the world, not being anchored down on this planet, but realizing that God is present and He has a direction for us. And am I going to trust God, or am I going to trust other people's words? What is the words that I'm trusting? What is the revelation that I'm trusting? Where is it coming from? And am I really going after the better? Am I really seeking the greater riches, the greater inheritance, the greater house, the greater this, the greater that? Or am I just settling for the lesser? So you could see him just moving us again to the greater, upward, looking upward. It might be a good way to define what we see in the Psalms about the upward heart. Those that look upward, that are upright, right? The upright, the one that is looking up, instead of out, at the world. So, man, pretty cool. Great chapter. Chapter 11 in the books. You guys have a great day. It's a long chapter for sure, but boy, it's cool to get through it. Take care. Bye-bye.